Mired in toxic partisanship, left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today. Thank you so much for joining us here on this wonderful, wonderful Monday afternoon. We're live until 2 p.m. Give us a call if you want to participate in the show, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. Or leave your comments online. Take them there as well. And we're streaming on the Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, Free Solution group, and the Kevin Wilson page, wherever you're listening today. Appreciate y'all being here. Of course, we got the podcast too, either anywhere you find podcasts, just look for Free Solution or WYSL1040.com. Going to talk about a couple things today. Well, we're going to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act. Talked a little bit about this on Wednesday. Going to go into it a little bit more today. And maybe we'll hit a few other items too. Some of the police officers associated with Breonna Taylor's death are facing charges now. So we'll talk about that. And maybe a couple other things too. But let's start with the Inflation Reduction Act, right? Because it did end up passing the Senate officially Sunday. It was a 50-50 vote, tiebreaker vote that went to the Vice President, Kamala Harris, got to cast a tiebreaker vote for that. And, it's committing, what was it, $740 billion to a spending bill here. Again, with you got to love the names, right? Like, you got to love the names where Inflation Reduction Act, that like just because something is named something does not mean that is doing that thing. It doesn't mean that it's not even doing the opposite of that thing. And, it's got a whole bunch of goals. It's the compromise version of Build Back Better, right? It's the like half of what the Democrats wanted in their wildest dreams since they control the Senate and the House and the presidency. And what's funny with this act is I see, again, there's all this money being committed to it. It's trying to deal with healthcare outcomes. It's trying to deal with climate change outcomes. Joe Manchin was involved in some of that stuff because he wanted to see something that was closer to responsible. But again, just because you're compromising on something doesn't mean that's good, right? I think there's a lot of folks out there, well-meaning folks, are like, oh my goodness, Congress doesn't get anything done. If only they could come together and compromise. Listen, if the compromise is between spending, whatever it was originally, $1.5 trillion and $750 billion, and we're massively in debt, compromise does not make sense. Like, meeting in the middle of still two bad, irresponsible spending propositions, it's still a bad thing. Compromise in and of itself, if you're compromising on a position where you are ultimately still doing something that is unsustainable, it's not good. Now, I've seen a bunch of folks post like these cartoons and these analysis being like, with the Inflation Reduction Act, it might cause inflation to get worse, which is reasonable since you are now spending more money. You are also, just because you're doing things like introducing price controls and trying to lock stuff in place does not mean you're actually going to achieve that. Price controls do not work. But I've seen this cartoon going around that kind of caught my eye. That was the inflation. It showed a picture of Air Force One dropping cans of gasoline on a fire labeled inflation, right? And the cans of gasoline were like labeled like, higher taxes and stuff like that, right? And I don't think that's actually a very good method. What I think is actually happening is closer to this. Imagine you have a forest fire. The forest fire is inflation. We're not dropping gasoline on it. We're blowing up a dam. You're flooding the valley in the hope that you can put out that fire with price controls, with taxes, raising taxes on corporate incomes, raising taxes on people who are well off, and frankly, everyone else too. It's totally misleading thing to say that this is only affecting the rich. Nonsense. So they're going to do something that's going to end up causing almost as much damage as the problem that they're trying to solve. Okay, sure, you can solve inflation by slowing down the economy, by trashing it, in the same way that you can stop a forest fire by blowing up a dam and flooding a valley. Well, if you do that, sure, maybe you put out the fire, hopefully, at least in a good chunk of the areas. But how much other damage are you causing along the way? Again, we did the episode on inflation a couple weeks back. It's where, you know, the economy ends up kind of growing quickly, and you have a bunch of money injected into the economy, a lot of it caused by government spending, and it has nowhere to go, and that ends up, between that and the supply issues also caused by government, ends up causing prices to go up, in addition to the value of the money itself going down. So yes, this might in the short term cause some prices to go down by slowing down the economy so much that people can't spend, that firms end up lowering prices in order to try to make up some of that. But in the end, you end up with an economic contraction that could end up spiraling us into, we're already in a recession, but spiraling us into something far more serious. And that's what I don't like about the Inflation Reduction Act. And again, it's politicians trying to look like they're doing something. They're kind of losing the thread here, right? They're going out and trying to look like they're taking action to solve many of these problems that they themselves have caused. Is a typical case of government breaking your leg and giving you crutches. Like, okay, well, we know that some of these inflation problems are caused by government spending. They were caused by government regulations on supply. They were caused by, reckless printing of money. They were caused by all this stuff. And then what happens is like, well, okay, now we've got to correct for this problem. They're going to correct for the problem by doing more of what already failed. Instead, what we need to do is we need to just be responsible. Again, this would also slow down the economy. If we stop spending so much government money, it will probably slow down the economy, but they're not going to do that. It's much easier to say, well, we're going to spend all this money and it's going to make voters feel good in the short term, right? And like, don't pretend like people don't like getting government money. They do, but the responsible thing to do is to say, okay, we're going to spend responsibly. We're going to cut back, and we're going to do things that are going to get us back on the path of financial sustainability. But it's tough to do that when there's an election coming up. It's too tempting to just say, and the Senate is supposed to be able to have the wherewithal to do this type of stuff, right? They're supposed to be able to be the ones who see things long term. They're supposed to be the ones who say, well, we know that even though it is tough to do in the short term, and it's going to cut off the flow of money to people who are enjoying it right now. Again, that money is funded by debt, not that actual money collected in, but that flow of money going to different firms and different individuals, we need to slow that down and get back on track again. It's tough to do, but we need to ask our politicians to do it. We've added how many trillions of dollars to the national debt over the last few years? It becomes addicting. We can't get away from it. And again, the only thing they can think to do is like, well, we'll raise some taxes. Okay. And to their credit, they're like, well, if we raise the taxes, we'll gain some more revenue and we'll kind of modestly reduce the deficit a little bit. Maybe if we're super lucky and optimistic, we'll actually reduce the actual debt. Deficit, how much money we're overspending each year. Debt is kind of the accumulated total of those amounts. And this bill says they're going to do this, but the way they say they're going to do it is by collecting more revenue, extracting more money from us. And even their ability to do that effectively should be questioned. They think they're going to collect just a whole bunch of money by soaking the rich. Guess what happens? All those new 87,000 new IRS agents that they're planning on hiring. Do you think they're going to just go after billionaires? You think they're just going to go after the handful of people who are super rich and have the resources and the lawyers to be able to get around this stuff? No, they're going to go after folks like you and me. It's going to be all of us who end up paying the price for this. But the only way we can, there's no possible way to fully extract that money from the economy without causing far more damage. The best thing to do is to just spend responsibly in the first place. You got to do both. You want to, okay, so we need to retract the economy a little bit to slow down inflation. Cool. But the way to do that is to start spending responsibly, not hope that we can extract more money from corporations, which really means that we pay higher prices in the form of higher taxes, those taxes that get passed on to the goods themselves, or to hope that we can extract more money from the people who have, again, the wealth and the resources to afford lawyers to get around this stuff, or the hope that you can extract it from everyone else. Again, the average folks. That's what's going to end up happening. That's what those new 87,000 IRS agents are for. All right. So when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about that, and maybe we'll get into some of the Breonna Taylor stuff coming up in the next segment. Thanks again for joining us here on Free Solution. Give us a call if you want to participate. Joe, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Hey, this is Kevin Wilson, host of A Free Solution. You ever needed a tool for just one project, but didn't want to spend the cash for something you'd use just once or twice? Well, there's a new tool library in Rochester where you can borrow just the thing you need instead of buying a new one. It's called the Tool Shed from the Southeast Area Coalition, and membership starts at just $25 a year. Use it for home projects or to support your business. Learn more and become a member at seektoolshed.org. That's SEAC toolshed.org.
Need to take care of a dental issue but don't have dental insurance? There's a special blessing for you on Saturday, August 13th called For the Love of God Dentistry. You can get an extraction, a tooth filled, or get a full dental cleaning for free. Be one of the first 150 guests at Grease Family Dentistry, and your choice of a filling, extraction, or cleaning is free. Registration starts at 8 a.m., so be there early and we'll give you a great reason to smile at the For the Love of God Dentistry event. Go to greasefamilydentistry.com for more information.
A Free Solution on the WYSL stations.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today. Thanks again for joining us. We're live here on WYSL until 2 p.m. Give us a call if you want to participate. Joe, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. And, of course, we're streaming live on the Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, the Kevin Wilson pages, all those. And we got a comment on Facebook, and I'll read this out. It's a little bit longer, so I'll read the whole thing out. Patty on Facebook says, the food pantry lines are outrageously long still. Media used to cover that. I personally know people who will have electric shut off and have empty cabinets and fridges, who work for more than one job. That is what voters that's what many voters are facing. They're asking about the pantry lines. Why do we never say this? How much was collected in taxes in the year? Aren't we the people, the bosses? Don't we hire and fire them with their votes? Aren't we supposed to know what our employees collected money taxes? So let me try to address a couple of these points that Patty's making here. And So let's talk about like the food pantry lines. Yeah, no, that 100%. That's a big thing, right? And there's kind of a couple things going on here, right? Like with the you may have seen like some of the recent like economic reports say like, well, unemployment's down. It's still at historic low levels, right? But there's kind of several different measures of unemployment. There's a measure of unemployment that is people actively looking for work, right? They're showing up, they're applying for jobs, they're getting unemployment assistance for doing that. So there's those types of folks. But there's also numbers like workforce participation rate, which is a little bit lower than it has been over the last couple decades. That's the people who are no longer looking for work. So that might include discouraged workers. That might include other folks who are maybe not participating in the employment system as we know it. So they could be doing under the table or black market work. So these are folks who are not counted. So that number seems to be going up a bit. And that's kind of part of what we might be seeing. So when the White House and when the media that supports people in power currently talk about this stuff, they'll kind of spin the numbers to tell the story that they want, right? So that's something that I always look at, and I kind of got in the habit of like whenever some government agencies like look at the unemployment numbers, they're great. Like don't just look at the regular unemployment numbers. Look at like the workforce participation rate, because that'll tell you a bit more about who just stopped looking for work and who it may be doing work outside of the traditional employment system. Not that there's necessarily anything wrong with that. It is an indicator of economic health, though, if people are not participating in employment in the regular markets, right? Again, they're going to black markets, they're doing under table stuff or whatever. And kind of a related point that I think Patty might have been trying to make is some of the folks who are working full time and are still going out and not being able to afford all their bills. They're maybe not being able to fill their fridge. And part of that is a product of inflation, right? With gas prices going up, with food prices going up, with electric prices going up. If you're on the margins, if you don't get a big pay increase, if you don't have a pay increase that matches the rate of inflation, you're falling behind. So what do you got to do? You turn to help again. I'm not saying anything bad about some of the folks who are working hard and are using food stamps or a SNAP program or a food pantry assistance or whatever. If you're working hard doing that thing, great, I get it. And I think there's a criticism from usually the left to say that employers are able to pay their employees lower wages because they can then benefit from these systems of assistance that exist out there. And so effectively you end up subsidizing employers paying lower wages because they make up the gap between their wages and their cost of living through government assistance, right? And I think that is an understandable criticism. And people will level this criticism at like places like Walmart all the time. And it is something that's kind of a problem, right? Again, if you have a lot of employees that you can redirect through these systems and they are relying on that for their full-time job and they are subsidizing their existence through taxpayer funds, that's not a great and sustainable system for us. And I don't know exactly what to do policy-wise about that, because I don't want to mandate higher wages for full-time employees, because every time you do something like that sounds well-meaning. Okay, well, we'll just command Walmart to make full-time employees get these other benefits. Okay, well, what happened when we had Obamacare and we did that? And they said, well, you have to provide healthcare for your employees if they're over so many hours. Well, guess what? They didn't suddenly offer healthcare to more people. They just cut hours for folks. That's what ended up happening. And so you can throw in fix after fix after fix. But, really what the solution is and what people have been doing lately, because the economy has kind of picked up a little bit and people as employees have a bit more options out there, is they just go and find new jobs. And if you weren't happy with your job, you could just say, well, they're not paying me the wage that I want. I have to rely on food assistance, even if I'm working full time at this job. I don't like doing that. I want to advance myself. I want to grow in my career. I want to be able to own a home one day. Whatever your personal financial goals are, you go to a new place. But that gets much harder to do if you have things that cause a recession, like Fed interest rates going up, like the Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to end up taxing corporations and individuals a lot more. When you end up contracting the economy, maybe you solve, and it's not even clear that this problem is going to, that bill, if it passes the House, would solve inflation, but maybe you solve it, best case scenario. But if you do so by contracting the economy, the workers now no longer have as many options to seek employment, so they feel more like they are stuck in whatever position that they're in, and they'll stay there even if that means relying on different forms of assistance to be able to make ends meet. And that you end up in this welfare trap. And again, I'm not necessarily criticizing the folks who are working hard and doing that, because that is a tough position. Because if you're like, well, I can keep working and I'm able to meet all my needs, but barely, and it doesn't matter that I'm not making the wage that I want. But if I jump above a certain point, then suddenly I risk losing that assistance. I have less negotiating power, and I'm going to be risking my financial well-being by going outside of my comfort zone. You end up with an economy that's stagnant, and wages end up kind of locking up for a lot of folks. Again, there are individuals who are able to act within those systems and advance themselves still, but that is a significant problem that we have. And I think that we can have a more dynamic economy when the government doesn't interfere and overregulate here, because as I mentioned, every time there's an intervention, it has other effects that we don't see. I'd mentioned the Obamacare intervention, right? Like, oh, well, we'll just have the employers provide healthcare. The whole reason we have healthcare associated with employment at all, and we don't buy it in the outside market like we do car insurance, is because of government restrictions on wages that then got transferred to, well, we can't raise your income, we can't raise your salary, but we can offer you healthcare as compensation, and that doesn't count. That's workaround from the government system. The government imposed mandates on salaries resulted in the employment healthcare goofy system that we have today. Every well-intentioned, and they're not always well-intentioned, but often they are, every well-intentioned intervention from the government has these consequences down the line that we can't see. That's what we have to look out for. And so in absence of those government interventions, what might we get otherwise? There's so many opportunities out there, that so many systems that we have to undo to be able to do that. And so let me get to a couple more of these comments. I have Danny saying hi on Facebook. Hi, Danny. And Patty saying, but aren't there jobs filled by people who were locked down for 2 years? So wouldn't the unemployment number just be reflecting that? Going back to what I was talking about earlier, not necessarily. Most people weren't locked down for 2 years. So the overall unemployment number, like most of those folks who are, it's not just excluding folks who are like still locked up, because most of the country, it's not a thing where you can't go and work right now because of COVID. It's for other complicated reasons that we're not going to get to before the break. All right. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Give us a call if you want to participate in the show. 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. We'll be back here in just a few minutes.
Celebrating 35 years.
WYSL.
AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center for tonight. It'll be warm and muggy near 70, some showers, even maybe a thundery downpour during the overnight. On Tuesday, the cold front will come through in the morning with a shower, maybe again downpour with some thunder. That should clear up by midday. We'll see some sunshine in the afternoon, a bit cooler and a touch less humid. We'll be in the 70s to near 80. Some beautiful weather coming up on Wednesday. I'm Rich Cornelia, WYSL.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Because your future is worth it. MGM Associates Insurance, proudly serving the region since 1984. MGM can meet your coverage needs, ranging from home, condo, and auto, all the way to specialized policies for business, workers' comp, to limo and taxi insurance, and coverage for tech professionals like IT specialists. They can also help lead you through the confusing maze in the new world of health insurance coverage and options. MGM Associates is large enough to serve you, but small enough to care, so you don't have to wait in line on some 800 number to get prompt personal attention. MGM Associates is the only winner of the National Best Practices Award 5 times in a row. MGM is proud to support veterans groups, including Heroes Home Advantage. For your personal, business, home, or professional insurance needs, meet the professionals at MGM Associates Insurance, locally and proudly owned at 1745 Penfield Road in Penfield, 381-7008. Or mgminsure.com, an associate of Ontario Insurance Company, 28 Canandaigua Street in Shortsville.
Rethink your relationship with barbecue. Johnny B's Custom Barbecue in Lima brings Southern hospitality to the crossroads of Western New York, where all the barbecue is fresh off the smoker and nothing is reheated. Enjoy live music, including open mic nights, in their historic dining room with original tin ceilings and our nation's founding documents proudly on display. Dine in or take out Wednesdays through Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. or until sold out. Just north of the Four Corners in Lima. For the most authentic Southern cuisine, it's got to be Johnny B's.
Flower City Collision in Henrietta is your hometown body shop, trusted by numerous corporate fleets and properly insured and registered in New York. Flower City Collision specializes in working with insurance companies on your behalf. Having built a culture where they respect the customer and their employees as well, Flower City Collision has assembled the best collision team in the Rochester area. If you need repair, reach out to Zach at Flower City Collision in Henrietta, and he will work with your national insurance company on your local behalf to ensure you get the repair you need done right.
Eisen Rochester is a full-service ophthalmology office, and we specialize in general ophthalmology, taking care of people from childhood to adult and seniors. We do general eye exams. We specialize in cataract surgery, corneal surgery, and disease, as well as LASIK surgery. We also have a full-service optical shop and contact lens fitting service.
Visit Eisen Rochester at 1157 Fairport Road.
Sheriff Thomas Doherty would like to remind us that most burglaries are committed with little to no force. A lot of times the suspect enters through an open door or window. It is difficult to make your house completely burglar-proof, but you can make it hard for the burglar. How strong are your locks on both doors and windows? Are there trees, hedges, or fences that will help hide the suspect? The enemy of the burglar is noise and time. They will move on to the next target if your house is taking too much time or if there is an audible alarm they set off. Lights on timers and motion lights are very effective, especially when you are not home.
What's the most critical component of every business? It's people. Today's challenging environment demands that you find the right candidate to grow and succeed. Good thing you can put Wellington Steel and Associates on your team to recruit the best talent for project management, software development, finance, sales, and cybersecurity. Their talented recruiters only find top-tier candidates to fit your company's unique needs. And if you're seeking a position, WellingtonSteelandAssociates.com can help you succeed. Wellington Steel and Associates, delivering the talent your business needs.
A free solution on the WYSL stations.
Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today. Thanks again for joining us here on WYSL. We're live until 2 p.m. Give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000 if you want to participate in the show, or, of course, leave your comments online, too. And can appreciate the comments we got last segment, too, talking about just kind of some other related issues to the economy as well. And just getting back to the IRS thing real quick, though, like the 87,000 new employees that the IRS wants to hire is going to cost like $80 billion of that $740 billion bill, which I misstated the original Build Back Better bill. I thought it was like 1.5 trillion or something. It was 3.5 trillion. It was a number that is just mind-boggling to me. I thought about it for a second. I was like, oh no, that's way too high. I must be thinking it wrong. Nope, it is $3.5 trillion. Anyway, so the 87,000 IRS agents, the Democrats are like, well, we need those resources to go after some of the billionaires and whatnot. Two quick things on that. This is a bit of a sidebar from the whole episode here, but two quick things on that. One, there's already essentially a special committee of Congress that goes after the richest of the rich, and they do like their own investigations of people. Like it is its own thing with its own staff. There's already like folks doing this. Again, there are also staffs of people who already work on the billionaire stuff, right? Like the promise is that with 87,000 new IRS agents, the dumb stuff that I had to deal with filing my taxes the last couple of years, like there's some error on my taxes a couple years ago that needed to be corrected, which prevented me from filing my taxes online, and I had to go and call someone up to go and like get it corrected. And I had to go and call so many darn times, because every time I would call, I'd wait, and then it would say, all agents are busy today. Please try it again another time. It took me weeks to get through to someone and then schedule, another time for them to call me back. And the promise is that it will fix stuff like that, right? Fix the stuff like where the IRS can't handle the influx of all the mail applications that are coming in, can't handle the influx of like individual taxpayers who need help, blah, blah, blah. There is a much simpler solution to this, which doesn't involve us spending $80 billion somehow on, I even know how is that number being distributed among those employees? My goodness. There's a much simpler, much cheaper solution than that, which is to just simplify the tax code. And I don't know that we could quite get down to a tax code as simple as something that like fits on a postcard, but there are different things that we could do that would make things simpler for Americans and probably make things simpler for the IRS too. Part of that is Congress just needs to stop creating so many exemptions, stop creating so many tax breaks, and people love their tax breaks. People love those individual tax breaks, and they will fight so much harder to keep that tax break in place. But if we had a simpler tax code, you probably wouldn't need to go through a tax preparation service. You probably wouldn't need to go through, an accountant. For most people, there are people who are going to get to a certain level of complicated where maybe it still makes sense. Business owners, things like that. But for average people, just collecting an income and doing normal things, we could vastly simplify that. And if we just lowered the taxes overall, cleared a bunch of the complicated breaks and made it so that there are less human resources that have to go into checking over the stuff that the average folks like you or I send in. Some of you listening might have complicated tax stuff going on, but the average folks, like most people, don't need anything that complicated. You don't then need people to go and check that. And again, those 87,000 people, they're not just going to go after the richest of the rich. They're going to go after us too. That's assuming the richest of the rich aren't listening to the show. If you are, I apologize. They're going to go after all of us. But we got to be prepared for what this means for us. We can do something better. We can do something that costs less money. We can do something that will help Americans. And that the solution isn't spending more money on IRS agents so we have more people to help us. It's to not need them in the first place. It's not going to result in net more revenue. And again, any result in net more revenue for the government means they are extracting it more effectively from us. That's what it is. They're not providing extra value. It's not like a company where they hire employees and in theory they're providing extra value to their customers and then able to bring in revenue from people who voluntarily transact with them. No, that's not how government works. They just extract money from us and they say, yes, we've collected more revenue. Pat us on the back. It's not back. Pat us on the back. Great. Done a good job. No, that's money that's coming out of our pockets. So no, I'm not excited about this, even though I've had my own problems with IRS customer service, my own issues with them that I wish could get resolved. I know that they're overwhelmed in many ways. And the short-term thinking is, well, let's just put a Band-Aid on this problem. It's the short-term thinking to just say, we can solve this immediate issue by just hiring more people. The long-term thinking, the thinking that we are in theory supposed to be paying the people in Congress to do is, well, okay, even if we have this short-term problem, maybe we need some new employees temporarily to get through the backlog of people who are just trying to file their taxes, not anything complicated. We're not trying to go after them, just trying to get through. Okay, fine. What's the next step after that? How do we solve the underlying issues here? There's not an incentive to do that. At least not one that I see. Or there is an incentive. I think people would want to vote for members of Congress who would want to simplify that tax code, make things easier, make things clearer, make it so that you don't have to hire someone every tax season, make it so that, hey, you don't even have to do your own taxes. The IRS already knows what you owe in taxes. And if you want to challenge that, you could say so, but you should be able to get a letter in the mail saying, hey, based on what your employer collected and or what you paid us, we think you still owe this amount, or we think you overpaid by this amount, so we're going to cut your refund for this. If you'd like to challenge that, go to this website and redo your taxes. That's what we could do. That's what other countries do, in fact. And it would be simpler, require fewer people, and make us all happier. So if there are any ambitious politicians out there listening to this show, I hope that's something that you adopt, that you fight for, that you can get through. Again, it's difficult in today's Congress. I recognize that to get anything through, to build that consensus, and to do something if you're not in a position of leadership. But man, that'd be pretty great. All right, so we'll do a couple other things with this bill, and then I think next segment I actually will shift topics a bit. But if you do have anything else to add on this bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, give us a call, 585-346-3000. That's 585-346-3000. And it sounds like we have a caller on the line. Good timing then. Gary from Hilton. Gary, what's on your mind?
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Fantastic. What's up, Gary?
Well, I got a question for you. Do you think there's 87,000 auditors looking for work in this country?
That's a good question. I actually do not know.
Where are these people going to come from, and who are they? But another point I'd like to bring up is, did you know that the IRS has been allocated 5 million rounds of ammunition and fully automatic weapons?
Oh, I totally didn't mean to bring that up, so I appreciate you bringing that up, Gary. So,
Well, it looks to me like this could be the beginning of the backbone for the national police force that they're looking to build.
yeah, no, that very.
I'm just
so-
asking the question. I got no evidence of that, but it sure does seem kind of strange that all of a sudden they're coming out and saying we're going to hire 87,000 new auditors to go after tax cheats. And I worked out the math. That's 1,740 per state. And that's assuming that you put this, equal number. Obviously, some states aren't going to need that much.
Yeah.
But if you do, break it down to counties for New York, we'd have every county in New York would have 28 new auditors. For what? Is there that much fraud going on amongst the working people? They're just trying to survive. And where are they going to get the money to pay for it anyway when they're already paying it in gasoline and food and rent and taxes? Yeah. Everybody's got to stop and think what's really going on. This is a plan. This is something that they've been working on for years, and they've put it into hyper overdrive now because they're making use of the pandemic that we just came through and trying to extend their emergency powers all over. And you got to really educate yourself, do some research. And if you look into the World Economic Forum website, you'll find the blueprint for everything you're seeing happen to the military, the police, the medical profession. They're destroying it. They're breaking it down and driving people out. Where are we going to have police in 5 years? They can't recruit them. They're retiring in extra numbers. Every year the number of retirements, early retirements goes up. So just, ask yourself those questions. And there are no, what would you call them? Innocent answers. It's a conspiracy by a really dark, evil force that's going to try to fold us into this one world order thing by destroying the middle class.
Yeah. All right. So, Gary, thank you so much for a call. I'll kind of address a couple of those things when we come back. Thanks again for joining us. If you want to call in too, give us a call, 585-346-3000. We'll be back in just a few minutes here on A Free Solution.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Hey, this is Kevin Wilson, host of A Free Solution. You ever need a tool for just one project, but didn't want to spend the cash for something you'd use just once or twice? Well, there's a new tool library in Rochester where you can borrow just the thing you need instead of buying a new one. It's called the Tool Shed from the Southeast Area Coalition, and membership starts at just $25 a year. Use it for home projects or to support your business. Learn more and become a member at seektoolshed.org. That's SEAC toolshed.org.
Need to take care of a dental issue but don't have dental insurance? There's a special blessing for you on Saturday, August 13th called For the Love of God Dentistry. You can get an extraction, a tooth filled, or get a full dental cleaning for free. Be one of the first 150 guests at Grease Family Dentistry, and your choice of a filling, extraction, or cleaning is free. Registration starts at 8 a.m., so be there early and we'll give you a great reason to smile at the For the Love of God Dentistry event. Go to greasefamilydentistry.com for more information.
A Free Solution on the WYSL stations.
All right. right, welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today. Thanks again for joining us here live on WYSL. Give us a call 585-346-3000 if you want to participate in the show or leave your comments online as well. Let me hit a couple of points that our last caller Gary had talked about. So we'll start with where are they going to get the people, right? The budget of the IRS is increased quite a bit because of this. I think before their whole budget was like 12.6 billion. It's going up to adding 80 billion now. Not all of that's going to be people who are going to be auditors. So some of those folks probably are going to be enforcement folks. I don't know exactly what. But I mean, where are they going to get the people? They're going to pull them from private firms and whatnot and states. So that means that more people are going to do that. Probably prices for those or cost of those employees are going to go up. That's probably what will end up happening. So the short answer is, yeah, they'll just take them from private firms and maybe that in theory, right, there'll be more demand for that profession. More people want to get in it. But yeah, kind of the second part is, well, okay, well, are they really going to have that much to do? Yeah, they're probably going to look for more things to do, right? From average folks who will now have not more assistance, but more scrutiny on their taxes, right? For something like, just filling out that, online tax service questionnaire and answering something wrong. Now they're making an accusation against you. You've got to find a way to essentially prove yourself innocent. Possibly go get legal counsel to help you with that. That's the worry, right? Like they're going to find reasons to go after you to say that, an average middle class person is underpaying their taxes in some way, and that they're going to have the resources to investigate and go after you. Right. With getting 87,000 people. Now it is true that they are buying ammo. Now the IRS has like a criminal investigation division, and so they did buy a bunch of ammo recently. Actually, they had bought $700,000 of ammo earlier in the year. There is a bill that I don't think is going to go anywhere to disarm the IRS. It would prohibit them from buying ammunition, but they do have that. And what they say is they need that stuff to go after gangs, cyber criminals, whatever, right? But something to keep in mind, especially for my friends on the left out there who are like, well, sometimes we need taxes, sometimes we need to collect this stuff in order to make government function. Okay, sure. Again, and I'm not an anarchist. I'm not 100% against taxes. I'm not, but you have to understand what the cost of doing that is. At the end of the day, when you are collecting a tax, if someone is not willing to pay that, if they don't cooperate with that, and it's not a request, if they don't cooperate with the government's demand to pay a tax, they will go after you using violence. They will threaten to throw you in a cage and possibly kill you if you do not pay what they say you owe them. Right? That is the nature of taxation. Taxation is coercion. Taxation is a threat of violence. That's how it is. That's how, unfortunately, the state works, is that if you do not agree with it, if you do not agree with what your tax dollars go towards, too bad, they will use violence against you. Going back, well before this, but you can read Henry David Thoreau doing this. He didn't agree with the U.S. government getting into war with Mexico. Said, okay, I'm not going to pay my taxes to the U.S. government because I disagree with this war. I think it's a war that is unjust. What they do, they throw them in jail. That's what they'll do to you too. And now they'll have more resources to be able to find the folks who do that. Not, and that's the decision that you have to weigh. Is again, how much do you feel that the government is doing is immoral, that you're willing to risk jail and possible violence to not pay your taxes to do that? And most people, including myself, would say, well, that's not what I'm going to do. It's not worth the risk to me, my family, etc. And they'll pay their taxes. So when folks go on about how taxes are voluntary, you know, and taxes, you know, do this, that, and the other thing to help folks, it's it's built on the foundation of coercion and threats and extortion. So my disposition is to keep that to a minimum. And I know Gary mentioned the other stuff about like the World Economic Forum stuff. You know, I'm not gonna get into that. That's gonna be a whole episode one time, and I think I've mentioned that I'm gonna do an episode on it. I promise I'll do one eventually. It's worth spending a bit more time on to go through like what is well-meaning, what is actually nefarious out of like this, what is actually of the government and the World Economic Forum stuff, what is just a suggestion in the way that like rich people who think they're smart do. Because there's a lot of that, right? There's a lot of like groups that get together and be like, hey, the world should do this thing, and then no one actually listens to them. And then there's other groups that get together and say that, and they're able to build a coalition among national leaders to push policies forward that advance whatever they want to do, right? And it's not conspiratorial thinking. That's just advocacy. That's something that NGOs and nonprofits, et cetera, do. And so going through like what the World Economic Forum does and what they advocate for and what's good and what's bonkers is, yeah, there's a lot going on there. And I'll say this all the time. Maybe I'll do this show with my buddy Tim. We do our Thursday shows, and I still they mostly to me fall under the line of well-meaning technocrats who will do things that seem like they're good but probably have a lot of like far-reaching negative consequences. And that's mostly how I feel about them in a nutshell. And I know some folks think now that's ridiculous. They're evil folks. But to me, you don't have to be evil. You don't have to have evil intentions to accomplish evil is generally where I fall under that stuff. And the most well-meaning technocrats who think that they can get people to act in the way that they think they want to act through coercion or technical changes, they can cause some of the biggest damage. Now, unfortunately, I didn't end up talking about the Breonna Taylor stuff. I ended up spending the whole time talking about the Inflation Reduction Act and the IRS and all this stuff. I'm running out of time here, but it is interesting to see that there are 4 officers charged in the Breonna Taylor stuff. I spent a lot of time talking about that case in particular. If you don't remember that one, it's the case where there's a no-knock raid, and that's still a problem that's out there. No-knock raids where people don't know that police are at the door, and people exercising their Second Amendment rights think that they need to defend their home from someone breaking in, not realizing it's the police, and then someone dies. Sometimes it's a police officer, sometimes it's a member of the household like Breonna Taylor. And in this case, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in terms of falsified information from police officers, cover-ups, all sorts of wild stuff. So that's probably worth a couple segments in Wednesday's show. And so I'll talk about that then. But in the meantime, I'll share an article on that because that's another thing that's it's not just a police issue. It's a Second Amendment issue in this case. And, you know, there are many folks in there listening who would try to defend their home if they thought someone was breaking in. And that's kind of what happened there. And, you know, we're seeing some consequences from the law enforcement side of this situation. All right. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. I will be back on Wednesday. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, folks.